The views and opinions expressed by the Loft Party Podcast panel participants and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Good Times with Good People company, the host, or its sponsors.
Just not getting it.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People company proudly presents the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Now that you've received your invitation, the best way to let us know that you're in attendance is to download the party or become official by joining us on Facebook, subscribing on YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, or Google Play Podcasts. Good. Thanks for joining us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Share us with your friends, and make yourself at home. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel. Hey out there in podcast land, I'm your host, Rio, and welcome to the Loft Party Podcast, episode 76. What did I miss? We lost a player. We lost lives where they played. Our president keeps playing with Puerto Rico, and the great play goes on. But before we get started, let me introduce today's panel. And, of course, I have my returning champion, Chris O'Connor, owner of Liquid 9 Entertainment and Investments, as well as having interests in Rieger Whiskey and Office Works. I have got Big Dave Elliott. He's the owner of C&P Construction. I have got Jordan Brasberry. I like that. You like that one? Jordan Bradbury, but he may, from now on, be Jordan Brasberry. Industrial supply sales.
I thought he did space novels.
Wait, what? What is the name of?
The writer.
You were showing me last podcast your cats.
Right.
That you're doing.
The spot that I'm getting them done at?
No. What's the name of your brand?
I have it on today. It's Genuine Alchemist.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue to do industrial supply sales, but I'm also gonna say the owner of the Genuine Alchemist brand.
All right, that's cool. It's a cool brand. It's just it was a thought, man, and I just rolled with it, and it felt organic. It felt good. Let's roll, man.
Go for it.
Yeah,
it's working.
But I say he will,
dreams, baby.
He will own that until Loft Party absorbs that. So we will move on to, of course, the anonymous female, and that's because she doesn't want you to know her name. And that brings us to important things. So let's talk about important things. So what are we smoking? We're smoking Padilla Vintage Reserve Figurado today. It's kind of a neatly box pressed. It's a double tapered cigar. It's got some sweet earthy notes. Carries little hint of molasses and wood and coffee. It's actually quite a good smoke. It's medium bodied. It's got a Nicaraguan filler, Honduran binder, and a Mexican wrapper. It is 90 on Cigar Aficionado's scale of how good the smoke is. And of course, if you don't know, 90 falls in the outstanding category, 90 to 94. Then you have stuff that falls into classic, that's 95 to 100. And then if you go over 100, I have never seen it, but it is possible. Just don't fall below 69, because that's the don't waste your money category.
If you're gonna go over 100, you're gonna catch a really good buzz.
You probably will. And the other good thing about this particular cigar is it's only about $9 a stick. So you can enjoy, and that brings us to, so what are we drinking?
Well, that's the countries, though. I don't know how this cigar ever made it over the wall.
Yeah,
Get it while you can.
Yeah, really. I had quite a week last week, and so I personally needed a stiffer drink. So we are having a Kansas City Manhattan. That is 2 ounces of Rieger whiskey, half ounce of Pedro Sherry, half ounce of Coqui Barola, and 2 dashes of pimento bitters. You're going to put that with an orange peel, a little bit of brandied cherry, and you're going to serve that either up or on the rocks like I'm having right now. So with all that said, let's get to our RIPs. We were off last week. Like I said, I had a hell of a week. So I'm going to start with the one that I mentioned at the beginning. We lost a player. As a matter of fact, we lost the original Chicago player himself, Hugh Hefner. He passed away at 91. Of course, he was the head of the Playboy Empire, the founder and head of the Playboy Empire, until the last few years of his life. He finally, I think, turned it over to his son, I want to say. Tom Petty, he passed at 66. For all of you out there who are old enough to remember, I am actually not, but I've heard it enough that I thought you may be interested. Monty Hall.
Let's make
a deal.
Monty!
He passed away at 96.
You don't remember Let's Make a Deal?
I don't remember actually seeing Let's Make a Deal, but I remember enough, hearing about it enough.
Loved Let's Make a
My
Deal.
mom and dad loved it.
And
He did other game shows before that too. Way back in the day, and game shows were big on TV back in the day.
yeah, they're starting to make a comeback here lately.
It was like Wink Martindale, where you can make a living doing just that.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And of course, we want to send a warm rest in peace to all of the men and women that lost their lives in Las Vegas with the tragic shooting that happened there last week.
And I'd love to take off the RIP, the asshole who shot all of them.
Yes.
Where he's not included. So there are other places you can go.
Yes. So, as to not end on that note, we want to acknowledge some happy birthdays. Today, on podcast day, today we're recording on the 9th. Sharon Osborne turned 65.
Think about, wait a second, just back up and think about this moment. This woman has handled Ozzy Osbourne for 30, almost 40 years probably. I mean, they got married a long time ago.
Yeah.
I want to say damn near 40 years.
Yeah,
I'd be interested to look up, see how long they've been
I wouldn't be
married.
surprised. I wouldn't be
You don't have
surprised if it
Mr.
was like-
O'Connor?
I thought they got divorced.
I think but overall they're still together.
Yeah, but even then, that was within the last.
That was recent.
Yeah.
But she also had one hell of a career. Aside from just Ozzy, she put up with a lot of shit from a lot of stupid things.
A quick little side note, my late dog Scout, at 6 months of age, my wife let him out the back door. And somehow he come back with a headless bat in his mouth.
Okay.
And at that point, I wanted to rename the dog Ozzy. Because that was obvious.
Yeah.
All right? My wife said over her dead body. End of discussion.
End of discussion. All right, so Tony Shalhoub, for those of you out there who are TV fans, he played Monk for a lot of years.
Good show.
If you're movie fans, he's been in several things, but the Men in Black franchise, he was the guy who ran the pawn shop, who kept getting shot in the face.
His face
kept having to regrow back.
Yeah,
his
his face was just incredible.
Yeah.
He was perfect in that.
And of course there were many others, but those were a couple of people I thought people out in podcast land may actually know. And with that, we'll be right back. Hey, you can search for the Loft Party Podcast on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, and on our Good Times with Good People YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, tweet us on Twitter, and if you like the content we provide, donate to us on Patreon. www.patreon.com/Loft Party Podcast. You can find all of our links below. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. And we are back. And before we get too deep, we're going to play a quick party game. But before we start playing a party game, we were joined by Adrian Lewis. Of course, he is the founder of Path to Vision, and he is joining our panel. And he is jumping in right at a good time. So since you came late, I'm going to ask you first, Adrian.
It's not a hard one this time.
No.
Okay, cool. I don't have to think much.
Tell me about your first car.
78 Chevrolet Monte Carlo. It was my dad's. Spoke rims, baby blue, leather interior, bitch seats, roll it back. It took 2 people though. You had to keep rocking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 2-seater. She was a good car. She died when my dad died though. So wanted to keep her to kind of remember him on, but she just kind of dry rotted.
She said no.
Yeah, she just
Cutlass was a badass car back in the day, man. You had a Cutlass, you had a ride.
I'm telling you.
No doubt.
It was a nice car.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I actually, too, my first car was a 78 Monte Carlo.
Oh.
It was maroon, leather bench seat. Yeah, the whole nine. I was a slutter.
They was also
Why
good
did you
for
like the
hanging with the
bench seat?
ladies now. This,
Yeah.
It wasn't about the bench seat. It was
said,
just,
huh?
because in that those, hey,
about the
I
in
said,
those
why did you like the bench
days,
seat?
in those days, that's what we did. You know, you went out and found that little dark place out in the way, and
In those days, I'm pretty
days.
sure it's anybody that's young does that.
they can't do it in these little damn cars nowadays. Don't give me that
Please,
stuff. Well,
if you want to do it bad enough, you're
I'm
going to find a way to
my
do
big
it.
ass in there. I'll guarantee you that.
what was your first car, Dave?
Yeah, I'll give you 2. My father was a pharmacist, and he had a Volkswagen that he used for his deliveries, and it was red, and he had on the top of it was called the drug bug, and then on the side of the doors they had little pills running, and it said Elliott Pharmacy on it, and that's what I learned how to drive on. And got my license on was that, and I ran pharmacy deliveries for him until my hair got too long, and I come in to do deliveries one day, and there was an old guy standing there, and he says, "This is your replacement. You need to get another job." But the first car I ever had was the AMC Pacer,
All right.
the upside down moonship,
All right.
and we had an 8-track player in it, 3 on the floor, silver, and you could fit about 5 people in there. We'd all light up a joint and put on like some Zeppelin or some Floyd or something like that, get stoned out of our stupid asses and fall out of the car, and smoke would just roll out. God, we had a blast in that car. Plus, the bonus was, sorry, anonymous female, the back seat flipped down. Which on
Why are you
a cold
apologizing to
winter
me?
night was made for some nice romance. Just say.
Joy.
My first car was an 83 Buick LeSabre, 2-tone, deep dish rallies, wood grain, plush interior, had like the braided leather wheel.
You so drunk, bro.
You know what you do with that one too, huh?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, is there a life before that we need to know something about?
No.
Sounds like a pinball bill to me.
Nah, the car was like,
Hang with Trick Daddy.
found an old couple, man, you know. that was kind of like the situation where you just kind of rode around the neighborhood and you would see something to some old lady or old guys parking like their driveway and asking if you wanted to sell it. It was $850. My grandpa loaned me $200 on it. He also helped me get the brakes redone and got a set of tires. It was my first car.
It's all right.
So naturally, I went, put a head unit in it, and I didn't tint the windows. Like at that point, it was like we called it glass house. So like riding no tint was like a status thing. Or something.
Right.
You just kept it real clean. Used to put baby oil on I had some rust spots, so I put baby oil on it to kind of make the paint pop. I could have went to Mako and got a clear coat gig, but it was like $3.99 and couldn't afford it. So
The price of the car.
right, exactly.
You were serious about that, wasn't you, man? That was
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Did you name that car?
No, I didn't have a name on it. I just
Some people name their cars.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't have a name. I just roll, man.
You call Lucille or nothing like that.
I should have named it. Well, yeah, that's it. 83.
You should have named that car. That car deserved a name.
You're right, man. You are right. That's it. 83 Buick LeSabre.
That's fun.
Great car.
What about you, Greg?
I got my first real car when a girlfriend of mine moved out of town, and she just left this car thinking I was going to bring it down to her, and I just didn't. We didn't get along very well. But it was a VW, 79 VW bus, brown with the orange racing stripe along it. Bus.
Oh.
It was awesome until it turned cold and I realized it didn't have heat.
Oh.
It was really, so you'd be covered up in blankets trying to drive this thing. And I lived at the top of this hill in Lawrence.
Oh.
And one day it had that black ice, that clear ice that you can't really see, it just looks like the road's wet. And I turned out the parking lot and just shot down the hill and couldn't stop. And thank God, because if you've been to Lawrence, I was at the top, well, all the way through Mass Street, all the way down this, and could not stop the car. It finally it got enough traction where it stopped, but it was all the way down. If anybody was coming out of it.
You probably didn't have any tread on the tires.
Oh, no. I mean, I was so poor, I had nothing. I was glad the thing ran.
I had an old van back in New Hampshire that I used to ride back and forth to work and didn't have any heat. And we hung a heavy blanket up right behind it so we'd get the heat off the motor because the motor was right there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Then it'd be 10 below and we'd be riding to work, freezing our asses off.
So if you know, the bus actually had the engine in the back. So it took two people to start it because somebody had to hold this switch up in the back. It was awesome.
Man.
And then I literally had every childhood possession I've ever owned in it, and I would just try, move it from place to place. Because I moved probably every 6 months. And finally, I guess I hadn't moved it long enough, and they towed it, and I couldn't afford to get it out of the tow yard. So everything I had before I was 24 years old is all gone.
That's hilarious.
Anonymous female.
I don't remember what year mine was, but it was silver Oldsmobile Calais. I'm sorry, Oldsmobile Supreme.
That's a legit car.
See, there's a difference right there. You realize this.
I do. That's why
All of us know what the make and model of our car
I
is.
do. I
The
would
anonymous
have to.
female, like other female, knows I just had a car was this color and it was
No, I can tell you every other year car I've had. I just don't remember the first one. And
Okay.
a roommate
just
of
checking.
mine took it out for a ride when she didn't tell me and blew the engine. So,
Oh,
Went out for a ride and never came back.
yeah, and
That would no longer be a friend of mine.
she wasn't. She really wasn't a friend to begin with. As you saw, or
why
as
she
you heard,
blew
I
the
said
motor.
roommate.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, it was a nice car.
That's awesome, an Oldsmobile.
Yeah.
That was the one that the boyfriend of mine pulled the stereo out and then tried.
Oh yeah.
Like he put a stereo in my car for me, and when we quit seeing each other, he came and tried to like rip it out. So I called the police. Well, the sheriff got on the phone. He's like, "You need to come over here and give her stereo back, or I'm gonna have to arrest you." So he comes over and he's like, "Well, I bought it," and he was like, "But you gave it to her and put it in her car. It's now theft." And he's looking at it and he goes, "Why are there no serial numbers on this?" And he's like, "She can have it. She can have it." I was like, at that point, I was like, "I don't want it. You can take it. You can have it. I'll put a new stereo in."
The guy at the gas station said it was legit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was quite the ordeal.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Actually, I think that's a perfect place to stop right here. And with that, we'll be right back.
Hey out there in podcast land, we would not be doing our duty if we didn't acknowledge the sponsors of the Loft Party Podcast, the Majestic Restaurant and Jazz Club, and the Majestic's Pendergast Club. The Majestic carries on Kansas City's tradition of great food and jazz. Let them show you why they are the classic Kansas City steakhouse experience. 931 Broadway, just 3 blocks from the Kansas City Convention Center. J. Rieger and Company, a Kansas City distillery. Whether whiskey, gin, or vodka, neat or on the rocks, J. Rieger, Kansas City, sipping good since 1887. C&P Construction, Kansas City's premier wood framers. 50 years of quality framing and craftsmanship. Just email david.cnpservice@gmail.com and start building something new today. And our friend and frequent guest, Lane Boland. Thank you all for all that you do.